Welcome to the fourth episode of our PG 258 podcast series, where we venture into the intriguing domain of international relations and organizations in the context of Papua New Guinea. Guiding you on this journey are your host, Ben Moide and
JP Kekea.
As the facilitators of the Unit PG 258 International Organizations in PNG within the Bachelor of Arts in PNG and International Studies program at Divine University, we've chosen to deliver all our lessons in the form of convenient podcast. We are privileged to have once again our sessional lecturer and very experienced former Foreign Service officer as our special guest, Mr. Lahui Ako, with us in this episode, and he will talk about his experience working with the government of PNG and working with international organizations like APEC. Remember to grab your headphones as we set forth on this enlightening expedition together. Please say a bit about yourself.
This is my first ever podcast. So I'm sitting here watching both of you introduce yourself with much interest and I'm grinning. I spent 27 years in the public service, 20 of those in the Department of Foreign Affairs and 7 of those with the Department of Prime Minister and NEC. So I'm very excited to be here to talk about APEC. The best part of my work in the public service was doing APEC stuff.
Okay, so we looked at liberalism and zooming down into one of the sub-theories of liberalism, which is commercial liberalism. And that's the topic that we'll be covering for this episode of the podcast. Now, we'll look at commercial liberalism, free trade, and international organizations, including APEC. So we feel that Mr. Ako, you are the best person in the country to talk in relation to that topic, and you can give us the practical side of the things and how APEC, how that organization connects to commercial liberalism. And the first question is, how is APEC considered as an intergovernmental organization?
Thank you very much for that. As you would all know by now, APEC is made up of 21 member economies. They call them economies because 2 of those members are actually not sovereign states, Hong Kong, China, and Chinese Taipei. Taiwan is known in APEC as Chinese Taipei. Okay, so their involvement, both Hong Kong, China, and Chinese Taipei, came about through a 1991 MOU between China and the APEC to allow their participation in the process. So they are usually represented by ministers responsible for economic development. Even their trade ministers, even during the APEC trade ministers meeting also, these 2 economies are represented by ministers responsible for economic development, not trade ministers. So that is the understanding APEC has with these 2 economies. But then all these economies have governments, and their governments work together through the APEC process. You have the senior official meeting, the SOM, and that's usually chaired by the SOM chair, the host of that particular APEC year. And then you look at the SOM as in the middle, and then above the SOM, you have the ministerial level, and then you have the leaders at the top. Below the SOM, you have the working groups. So you have the APEC committees and the working group, and these are all chaired and attended by government officials of the 21 member economies. APEC will always be considered an intergovernmental organization, and there is no use of the flag. Economies are referred to as economies and not countries. They don't have flags. When you are sitting in an APEC meeting, you will see that there's name tags. And there's no flag required in there because just to ensure that everyone is equal around that round table. And you will notice that the APEC sitting arrangement is made in a U shape or in a round table format. So everyone sits at the same level. So it is indeed a intergovernmental organization. And that goes far beyond the APEC system, because then people have always said that the APEC is a talk fest. Of course, it is a talk fest, but the smarter economies get the most out of it. You see, if you try organizing a state visit without attending APEC, which means our Department of Foreign Affairs will have to write a diplomatic note to another economy to visit, to enable the Prime Minister to visit. It will take nearly a year for that to happen because there's a lot of channels to follow. But if it was in an APEC setting, the November leaders meeting, during the bilateral process, a leader can invite another leader to visit, and a date is confirmed, and then officials go about doing a diplomatic note, and the thing can happen in 6 months, 7 months. For instance, during the Russian year in 2012 in Vladivostok, Prime Minister O'Neill invited Prime Minister Shinawatra from Thailand, and I think the Indonesian president also to visit. And they visited the following year.
In relation to PNG's membership to APEC, we would like to know whether or not APEC is vital for our economic growth and development.
I don't want to sound biased here, being that I've never worked in another setting except APEC in the 7-8 years before I finished from the public service. But consider a marketplace that has 57% of the world's market. All your major exporters and importers are from APEC economies. How does PNG look at that? The APEC economy consists of 57%, 57% of the world's market is in the APEC region. And with that in mind, if we had to look at market access and free trade agreements, one would be crazy not to go to the market, where the action is. So it is very vital. And like I said, APEC provides the avenue for leaders to meet. You see, when leaders and ministers and senior officials and also officials at the working group level or committee level go to APEC meetings, they have the opportunity to meet bilaterally with their colleagues. That cannot happen elsewhere. I've never been to the WTO, I've never been to the UN, but I'm pretty sure that the process of getting bilateral meetings for leaders is a bit challenging. See, with the APEC process, in a year, August would be too late to secure Prime Minister's bilateral meetings for the November leaders meeting. Because when you try writing to an economy, say China, or it depends on the interest we have, the government's interest. If the government has always been talking about market access, okay, who are the markets which we can export Papua New Guinea's products to? So let's say Malaysia, Thailand, China, Indonesia. Let's use those 4 examples. So right now, August, September, suppose you are organizing diplomatic note goal or foreign missions goal or salim goal to send over to their foreign ministries back at capital. The most likely answer that will come back is that we are yet to confirm, or sorry, calendar for our foreign minister or for our leader is full. So those things have to be done in March, April.
In advance.
In advance. And not only that, the senior official meets with his colleague at the APEC. APEC has 4 senior officials meetings. So you have SOM 1 and SOM 2 to go hard on those arrangements. Meet with your APEC colleague and tell your Malaysian colleague that, hey, our government is discussing this, so my leader might be requesting for a bilateral. Please note it down. So I'm mark happiness. So once June, July, when the letter of request for bilateral goes across, they'll slot you down in their slot. It is not an easy thing. And as soon as those slots are given, they are either confirmed unless something drastic happens. For instance, when in 2016, I was Prime Minister O'Neill's runner at the leaders meeting in Peru. We had to, you have to use your talent to confirm that bilateral meeting, because the leaders being political, anything can come up that can change the schedules. They can come, like PM O'Neill came and said, Lahui, please, can you move this meeting, Vietnam's meeting, to that day? That, you can't say it's impossible to him, but it's impossible, because then you have to go and tell your Vietnam liaison of, hey, can we move this meeting? But I can't move it because that 9 a.m. slot you are requesting, my leader is meeting with Indonesia. You see, that's why it's very, very important that those things are done in advance. Now, there is a situation where both leaders do not want to sit in a real bilateral. So you can bilateral process in the bilateral meetings. There are different types of bilateral meetings. The most preferred ones are the sitting down ones. You can sit down, two leaders sitting there, and then depends on if it's a leader plus 5, leader plus 2, leader plus 7. Then you sit them down by order of rank, or not by order of rank, or with facing their colleagues. And always know that the note taker is the last person sitting at the end. That's always the note taker. It's during those instances where the country's development agenda are advanced, which is why I was saying, if it's about market access, we're talking about those 4 economies. So we've now secured the balance with those 4 economies. The liaison officers have mentioned, have introduced, hello, my name is Lahui. I'm Prime Minister O'Neill's liaison officer. Oh, I'm Mahmoud from Indonesia. And you have contact now. And your contact will maintain, because sometimes they can another economy might shortcut it. Or if there's an inversion, and bilateral but finish, and there's a talking with the neighbors about those things. So there are different types of bilateral settings. You have that much more preferred one where leaders sit properly and talk, and you have note takers. You have note takers taking notes. And when you're taking notes, you must be alert also, because let's say PNG asks economy A, or economy A asks PNG, offers PNG, listen, we've got 20 slots for agriculture training. Would PNG be willing to take up those 20 slots? PNG will say, yes, of course. You kiss him note, yeah. You're not going to talk yes, of course, nothing. You start saying, okay, agriculture, DAL, 1. Secondly, deep note from Foreign Affairs to that economy, saying that the deep note will sound like this. When our 2 leaders met last week on the margins of the APEC leaders meeting, your leader offered 20 spots. We are here now following up. How do we continue this engagement? M1 now. You see, most of this last 40 years, I think this last 40 years, we wasted them. Because Almighty Kosinano leaders meeting, also big meeting on the ministers, they just took notes. They never came and followed through. Because I can say that we've had offers of building missions by other economies in their areas. Same reciprocity were given. When we were organizing, preparing for APEC 2018, economies were offering assistance. We had to judge them. Now, that's a bilateral. And then the other bilateral will be called a pull-aside. So a pull-aside bilateral means on their way to a coffee break, they'll step aside on the side and they'll be talking. They can allow note takers, or they may not allow note takers. So there is we must always have note takers, because the country's position has been advanced. So there must always be note takers there to take notes and follow through. And then there's the other one, which was unheard of, but we organized that. You see, it came to the situation that PNG and Australia had to meet, but all the slots were full. So around 11 p.m. that night, I called my Australian colleague and said, listen, both prime ministers want to meet. So, but all the slots are full now. How about meet? So maybe I thought to go now, Mangi Australia to listen. Why don't they, on the way after they complete the plenary and on the way to lunch, why don't they meet? So we had to go and get the floor plan Blow Hotel, which they give to economists in the admin circular. Get the floor plan now, look and meet us. So while he was in his hotel, I was in my hotel car park, and we started walking it. We started walking it step in the timing. Nipla step walking timing. So I think at a particular pace, it was about 3 minutes something. And by the time both of us finished, it was about 1 a.m. So I rushed up to O'Neill's suite na minok na Madam Linda Opimdo na took a PM what him stop. So then I told PM, this is it, your last meeting, and Mountain Prime Minister. And once you finish in plenary. And on your way to lunch, you must walk at this pace. And I started doing the pace so that they have 3 minutes to talk. Sadly, no note takers. But both of them wanted to meet. So that's the importance of our membership. See, APEC has 4 senior official meetings a year. Right now, the PNG APEC team is in Seattle attending some 3. And they've gone to the US the 3rd time now. There have been a couple of ministerial meetings. I don't know whether our ministers attended or not. And then you'll have a leaders meeting. So you see, during those 4 senior official meetings, if you have a smart senior official, and by advancing interest block country, good too, not only on economic matters only. Sometimes if it's a security issue, then you will notice that economists bring their security experts or defense experts along, and then during the bilateral meeting, their topic is on that. Outside of the meeting. So the bilateral meeting can happen early in the morning, during breakfast, during the plenary meeting, during lunch, and after. In Peru, Prime Minister O'Neill in one day had 8 meetings. So we had 3 in the morning before breakfast, 3 in the morning before 9 o'clock, 2 pull aside, another pull aside at lunchtime, and the New Zealand and the other ones in the afternoon. Now, hopefully, the team would have organized Prime Minister Marape's bilateral meetings this November in San Francisco. So once I'm go, between 9 o'clock na 5 p.m. lo 2 plenary days or 1.5 day plenary. His bilateral meetings are set up, and that is where he's going to drive our agenda. APEC runs with the Melanesian spirit. APEC is all about consensus. In APEC, you have to be diplomatic. If there is a blockage, there's a recess. You allow the 2 or 3 economies to go outside, and the mediators will run in between. And then as soon as a consensus is found, they will come back and say, hey, what about paragraph 19? Oh, we agree. Okay, let's continue. In 2018, when we hosted leaders, you see, one particular economy came purposely with its own interest. So when it came, it didn't bother about consensus. That's the reason why paragraphs 9, 16, and 17 of the Eracone Declaration there was no consensus. And those 3 paragraphs were WTO-related paragraphs. Tuplaya Karim war blow no Karim come here. No, they brought it here. APEC, although people see APEC as a talk fest, it is very, very important to our interest. It's so important.
Very interesting. Our next question is about free trade. How the discussion about free trade occurs in the APEC space, the space that you are comfortable with and you have experience in. So what's your experience? What is it like? How do you talk about free trade when you go to an APEC meeting?
Okay, right now, for the last 10 years, APEC has been talking about this FTAP, Free Trade Area of the Asia Pacific, or last 15 years. They've been looking at how the 21 member economies can come together in a free trade area to improve trade and liberalization and investment. And in making economies work towards eventual FTAP, they've come up with what they call building blocks. So some of the building blocks were the TPT, the Trans-Pacific, that was part of the building blocks towards an eventual FTAP. But then, you see, it's going to be really hard for APEC to have a free trade area as APEC. Why? Simply because of its non-negotiation platform. But the way I see it, economies can use APEC to negotiate their FTAs during those bilateral meetings. There have been caucus, during the APEC meetings, you'll have the ASEAN caucus. We'll be walking past and there's a note saying ASEAN caucus meeting. Yeah, it's all boom stuff. Or you have an ASEAN Plus meeting on the sides of APEC. And what they're doing, they're talking about the FTAs or particular chapters in the FTA which they need reviewing, all that. So APEC can be utilized for that. For actual free trade negotiation, it's a bilateral thing. Although I don't know what our capabilities are in terms of what we have, our resources, what resources we have to negotiate and bargain with as part of the FTA. But we'll go back to the idea of the marketplace. APEC is the marketplace. And most of these other bigger economies are now utilizing APEC to push their economic development agenda. You look at the U.S.'s economic strategy recently released. When you read into it, it is saying that U.S. will utilize forums like APEC to drive its economic development strategy in the region. It's all there. From the way I see it, they know APEC, because APEC provides flexibility for leaders to meet. You're walking past, and then in Peru, I was escorting Prime Minister O'Neill, and from that spot to the meeting, to the family photo, I'm stopped 3 occasions to talk with 3 leaders, all within the 20-meter zone. You would never do that in a bilateral state visit. A state visit will take time to organize because both leaders will have to look at their calendars and then take into account their international conferences. For some time, you're still a state visit, but will you be going to APEC? Yeah, let's meet there. So people are using APEC as the meeting place to talk business. And not only that, in APEC, there is also the CEO Summit, where all the CEOs of big companies from around the world, they come to have their own meeting and talk about how they can work with government to the usual things we're talking about, foreign exchange rates and or something domestic. They talk about that. And then there is the APEC CEO dialogue, APEC Leaders Dialogue, where you have, if there are 21 leaders and there are 23 CEOs who have attended, they group them up and then you talk. And the beauty about hosting an APEC is that the country gets to write the policy priorities. It's just like writing a foreign policy white paper to be used within that year. They don't do that at the PIF. They don't do that at the MSG. They have secretaries there who write up the agendas. In APEC, the hosting economy does that. PNG, we had to, in 2016 and 2017, Ambassador Komaliu and I, we held 167 bilateral meetings with the 20 economies, all to sell them our ideas. When we told the developed economies about poverty alleviation, they said, we don't have poverty. So we had to come up with remote assistance. So kind of words also. And the fact that the leaders came to attend the leaders meeting or send their reps mean that they accepted the agenda. That's the reason why they came to attend the meeting. So all Bakarim's agenda go back law, helping all business. The agenda was a PNG agenda, but it was crafted and arrived with contributions by all the economies. All the economy, you got what you call they had an interest in that agenda. And that happens every year. The PNG case is different. We had to, it was quite humbling sometimes. When you look at it, you say, no, I mean, who are we? That why are we the only ones who have to go and seek approval from all these economies? And all the other economies, when they're hosting, they don't come and talk about their policy program. They just put him up. And then, this is when you start talking with the Lapung House. And then when I talk with my late father said, so have you hosted? No, God. And yeah, there's your answer. All those economies have hosted. Do you have stadiums? No, God. Do you have infrastructure? No, God yet. They have. So they don't need to seek, not permission, but seek approval from someone whether you are able to host or not. So the Melanesian way of seeking advice comes into play to support it. So APEC, I think, paved the way for this country's economic development agenda.
Thank you for that. We want to know some of your memorable experiences in the public service involving international organizations. What are they?
The main one I would like to talk about would be sitting alone at APEC meetings. See, between right up to 2013, people just went joyriding at the APEC meetings. No one cared. And I speak it out of experience. I don't know. I joined the APEC Secretariat in 2008, all the way until I walked out in 2021. I don't know before that how people participated, but during my time right up to 2013, you'll have a busload of people attending APEC, a busload of people going to APEC, but only a couple of us running in between meetings because all man goes shopping. And my most memorable one was in Japan. It was humbling, but it was also enriching also. Because I was a liaison officer, and the liaison officer, EMSA go kisimol accreditation passes, and people at the host accreditation desk know that you are the lowest of the delegation. So they'll see you getting the passes going and giving them out. And then fast forward a couple of days, I get a call from home that the senior officer will not be attending. So because the other senior officers are not available, you will be the acting senior officer. So when I went across to, when the Japanese liaison officer brought me across to the accreditation place, the whole Japanese line all stand up. As soon as I put there's a lapel pin, a bronze lapel pin they give to senior officers. So when they said that, the liaison officer said, bring the lapel pin below PNG Som, all Karim come now. When he started pinning it on me, the 7 ladies all stand up and all bow on me. And that was my most heartwarming experience I had. And I later found out from the Japanese liaison officer that Otosama, they gave you much respect because a couple of days ago, they saw you running errands. Come in, kiss him or something, go, come, give him. And all of a sudden now, you got a lapel pin, and that gave me much face. All these things happened in Japan. A couple of days later, you see, from 2008 right up to 10, they were what they call peer reviews. So that's when our senior officers would give a report on how APEC has fared in our country. They had the individual action plans, 17 chapters of it, which we had to look at tariffs, non-trade measures, all this or something, which we had to take off, which we couldn't do because the APEC system was not supported properly in PNG. So when my time came, I told the PNG delegation, hey, me but talk. Oh, no, you don't talk. I said, but why? No, you all appoint you acting, you just go sit down and say, no, I have to say something. But what are you going to say? I don't know. I have to talk. We're not clowns here, for goodness sake. So people go stand up na mimi taitim boom gono. The moment I lifted the name plate, the PNG officer who was based in Tokyo rushed out to give a call to the person or boss lo Kundu Tokyo. So the chair saw me, and I think the accreditation ladies would have told the SOM chair that them liaison officer now SOM. So the SOM chair paid that respect to me and said, you talk. And I remember saying, introducing myself, and I was happy to be there and to be part of the system, and we will make sure continue to participate more proactively from then on. When the person came back, he said, boss, talk, no can talk. Sorry, me talk finish. But you see, that was us back then. So there was always a joke. I can remember one of my friends from one of the economists, whom I will not name, but I still consider him as a big brother. Emba come na talk to me. Oi, during the plenary, Lahui, where's everyone? I said, no, there's no. At yesterday's reception, all pull up. And today, where's everyone? So all that changed, and then by the leaders' meeting, there was one final memorable one which I want to build. This is about the Japanese way of giving face. So me, Mr. Arai Pula, and Mr. Maigu had walked out of the airport, and we were going towards this guy who was holding up our nameplate, the PNG senior officer. So I was walking first, and the two older than me guys were at the back. So the Japanese liaison saw me, and I smiled, and he came and walked past me and went up to the older guy at the back and said, "Hey, are you Mr. Mr. Pulato? Name stop the front there." So Mani came like a sublo me for making that mistake. No. It's an honest mistake. But those were the memorable events I had. Driving Papua New Guinea's national interest, and also making sure that we left off in a joking manner, so that the other side were not embarrassed also. All my other memorable moments are in the APEC book.
Yes, the APEC book. We will make sure we get a copy for the library so the students can read.
Yeah, it's very thick. It's 700 pages.
Okay.
And it's only made up of a quarter of the diaries. Wow. I realized that if I put in all the diaries, it will make it more boring. All my moments are there, but listen, I still think that there is light at the end of the tunnel for us. Now with the foreign policy exercise going, we can only get better from here on.
Jay, do you want to say something?
No, I think you guys have mentioned everything already, so I'm just listening in. But yeah, I don't have anything else to say.
So we thank Mr. Ako for his time, and folks, that brings us to the end of this episode of PG 258 podcast series. We hope you have gained valuable insights into PNG's public service and how our public servants, they represent the government of PNG and the people of PNG at the APEC space. Please join us next time as we continue exploring the ever-evolving landscape of global affairs.